some of the portions of UFC DC were kind of hurtful in many ways for both of my fellow Dutchmen. So we'll get to that at some point. We're just going to do a quick recap. I'll just give like bare bones. We'll get some takes, but we're mainly going to be doing UFC 245 because that card deserves our time. Now, we didn't talk about it on the last show, but Bryce Mitchell was going to fight Matt Sales. And we didn't cover that because we usually cover the main card and a couple of prelims that we have our eyes on. As much as I like Bryce Mitchell as a person, he's a hilarious interview. Man needs some camo shorts. He really put on a show, man. He pulled off the second ever twister submission in the UFC in the first round over Matt Sales. It was beautiful. And as many of you know, the first one was done by Korean Zombie, who submitted Leonard Garcia. But that was years and years and years ago, man. That was before Korean Chan Sung Jung's mandatory military service. That's how long ago that was. Mike, I want to throw it to you since obviously you're the one of the two of us that actually has some grappling experience. But I mean, it was a beautiful sight to see for me. And how great was that to see come in an actual event?
Well, it's super impressive. What's more impressive is that he didn't learn it in person with Eddie Bravo or anyone at 10th Planet or anything of the sort. He actually learned it on YouTube by watching Eddie Bravo do it in an instructional. So to see him actually do it in the octagon and in front of all those fans that were they were funny when they were funny, but we'll get into those fans a little bit later. But they were being ridiculous, and so it was amazing to see him pull that off. And for a second, even I do jujitsu. I still don't. It just took me a second to realize what he had. And once DC was screaming about it, obviously you knew, and then you realized what an amazing thing that he locked in there. And like you said, it's been a long, long time since that's happened. So it's not like anyone has claimed the fame on that thing inside the octagon. So if he's got the second ever, if he pulls it off one more time, the UFC will love that.
Now, the Dirty Bird did Thiago Alves dirty in the biggest possible way. Thiago Alves was actually showing a little bit of gamesmanship. He nailed Tim Means some vicious times to the body. Tim Means showed pictures of the welts later, but it was pretty much all Tim Means outside of that. He imposed his will super early in the fight, landed basically every shot he threw, rocked Thiago Alves, sent him to the ground, was trying to finish with ground and pound, and then went to the go-to finish for Thiago Alves when he's in a bad spot, the guillotine. And he won via that submission. I know we talked about it. We were leaning towards him for a finish right there in that fight. And you know what? He pulled it off. We brought up at the inside the distance at the time, I believe was plus 150. We said it was a good number.
Yeah, baby.
We stayed away from it. But you know what? Sometimes when you follow the leans, they do a little bit better than the picks. What's your overall thoughts of the submission, the striking of Tim Means, and I mean, do you think Thiago Alves is done going forward?
The match was amazing to watch. It was as long as it lasted. Even Alves came in there a lot meaner than he has been lately, and he was throwing some vicious leg kicks into Tim Means' body to the point where I was a little bit worried for him. And then I realized that Tim Means was going to push past that first round burst that Alves has. So it was awesome to see Tim Means get that win, and we'll see what he does in the future. But let's not get it twisted. That was Tim Means, beating up a guy who shouldn't be there anymore. Alves, he really should just retire.
Now, Rob Font displayed what we talked about on the last show, superior boxing. And it really spelled the name for it in the second and third round when he came on strong. I mean, Rob Font looked great. Ricky Simon, not as much, but all in all, I mean, great performance from Rob Font, and I can't wait to see him against more bantamweights, I guess. Who would you like to see him fight next? And just, I guess, overall thoughts on the boxing acumen of Rob Font.
Yeah, Rob Font his boxing was super crisp, just like you and I talked about before they even had the match. and it was just way too superior for Ricky Simone, and I kind of knew that going into that match. All of Ricky Simone has is some really good scrambling ability and some good wrestling, and so that's just not going to get it done in the upper echelon of the UFC. I always been high on Rob Font. I don't he still hasn't quite performed to the his fullest that I think he can. I off the top of my head, I can't think of someone, but if is someone fun, I actually someone fun right off the head would be Dominic Cruz.
Ooh, I'd love to see that. That's be a good fight back for Dominic Cruz, and honestly, that striking would be a second to see. I like that. I like that. Good call on that. Um, Cody Stamann and Yadong Song or Song Yadong, whichever order we're going there, ends in a majority draw due to a point deduction. How did you feel about this fight? How did you feel about the point deduction? Just, I guess, overall thoughts.
The fight was a very good fight. Song Yadong was way more superior standing, like we talked about, and had a lot more power. But like we talked about with Cody Stamann, and I said I don't really like the kid, but his wrestling is the wrestling that I do like to bet on. His striking just isn't there, and that's kind of what lost him the fight. If he had a little bit more striking, then he would have gotten that decision. But I still think Cody won that fight, even though I don't like him. But I was glad Song Yudong didn't lose.
Aspen Ladd. I just want to pause on that for a second. Aspen Ladd. Now, she finally looked how we thought she would look when she was fighting against someone like Jermaine Darandami, but we'll talk about her later on the card. Aspen Ladd looked great. She looked competitive, but clearly winning the early rounds. And then on the stool in before the third, after some vigorous encouragement from her coach, came out and she uh, finished Yana Kunitskaya with a left cross to ground and pound and looked phenomenal. I mean, I've heard interviews about people that she fights and trains with and just how much they talk about how much power she has and how dominant she is once she gets on top. Like it's otherworldly given her frame and size, just all that stuff. I mean, I'm happy to see her. I'm just finally happy to have a young prospect, whether it be at bantamweight or featherweight, and ideally she will likely move up to featherweight in the future. I mean, she seemed to make bantamweight easy here. Um, Going forward, she could do either. She's still so young, man. She's 24 years old, and I'm just happy to finally have a legit prospect in the women's divisions rather than have the same 15 fighters fighting each other over and over again. So I guess that's where I'm happy about this one. How'd you feel about the performance, and how do you feel about Ladd going forward?
Well, just like we talked about, that we both felt that Ladd was the superior, more dominant grappler, wrestler, and younger, stronger, everything. The only thing that we were curious about was that a fluke knockout from GDR? Was it a bad weight cut? Was she having mental problems? But if you looked at her on the scale and during the weight cut of this one, she looked absolutely phenomenal. You could see her skin glowing, her face was glowing, the way she was smiling at the camera and at the reporters and announcers. So you could really tell that she cut weight really well this time. And so, like you said, she's 24 years old. When I was 24 years old, I was not disciplined enough to even make my dinner on time. So I don't have any ill will towards her being 24 and having to learn some lessons, especially losing against GDR. She's no joke, and she's knocked out grown men. So that's nothing to cry about. So I absolutely love Aspen Ladd. I'm super high on her. I think that if she just continues to get her striking going, that she could be a real prospect in the division. But she needs to flick that switch on a little bit sooner, because the third round is not going to do it for you at all times.
No, I completely agree. I mean, if she was like that in the first round, I think she probably could have got a finish in the first round, which looks that much more dominant and sets her up even more for the future. Now, this next one's going to be painful, and I apologize, but you all saw it. Ben Rothwell.
It was terrible.
Oh man. Ben Rothwell. I guess in parentheses, he actually did, but parentheses finishes Stefan Struve by TKO punches in round two after two hellacious low blows, the second of which left Struve convulsing on the ground. Honestly, before the first groin shot, and even after the first one, Struve looked pretty good. He seemed to be using his reach for once. I don't know why he didn't just call it after that second one, man. I like to come back. I don't get it. I know he thinks he was winning. I mean, I thought he was winning. The ref basically told him he was winning. But man, to come out of retirement for that and just the descriptions, even from him about the feelings afterward and during, I feel sick to my stomach. I really do. And I've been told that his tweets about the feelings will leave you feeling similar. So I still don't think Ben Rothwell has much going forward. I think he has hit a steep decline post USADA suspension, and that was the thing that sucked about this because I really do think Struve was winning. He was putting on one of his better performances, and the time off did him well. But I guess he's going to need more time off now just to make sure all is well. So, Mike, how do you feel about this fight? I would say where you see Struve coming after this, but I mean, if I was Struve, I probably would just retire again after something like that. But I guess where do you see him going forward? And I guess Rothwell too, but I don't know. I almost feel like he should be cut on principle.
Yeah, man. I mean, the match, Stefan Struve was really impressive. He was using his length and range really well, and it was causing troubles for Ben, and that was also making him super frustrated, which caused him to be just super inaccurate with those kicks. I mean, if you saw him throwing the kicks, he was blindly just throwing his fat leg into the air just so he could hit something, and he certainly did hit something, and hit freaking poor Stefan Struve's Swedish balls. I mean, and then you got the DC fans, the most ignorant, most ridiculous fans that I've ever heard in my life. You know, for a second, it was funny when you're hearing them cheer every time, Stefan would stand up because they were going to fight, but then he would be in pain and they would boom. I just, it's super disrespectful and unprofessional. I mean, I know as fans, you don't need to be professional, but as people, as acting citizens in the world, you should be hold a certain professionalism that represents your name and your family. So I just don't know, understand why you have to act like that. Being a brother of a UFC fighter and a fighter, and so close to so many other fighters, there's nothing worse than being inside of the arena and just hearing the cooing or the most ignorant fans just saying the dumbest things. So I felt for Stefan Struve. I really thought that he should have won that fight from a DQ or whatever it would have been in the second. He should have taken it, but his toughness actually was a detriment to him, and he ended up losing a lot of money.
Yeah, dude, that toughness coming back after fighting it out after I'm gonna be done because I might pass out. I don't know how he didn't, or throw up or something or other. So after clearly being up 2 rounds, at least in my opinion, from watching the event, Marina Rodriguez got hurt and sustained a lot of damage from Cynthia Calvillo in the third, leaving the judges to call it a majority draw. I didn't have it that way. I still had Rodriguez winning, but I know I'm probably biased because they're better. But Mike, how do you feel about the decision? How did you see the fight going? How'd you score it? And I guess how do you feel about either going forward? Even though I think Calvillo's they're gonna be made to make her go up in weight class because she missed weight again. But thoughts?
Well, Marina Rodriguez was my bet and my pick, and if I could go back, I would still pick her 100 times over. She was the superior striker in every sense of the word, and she dominated that girl for all of 1 and 2 rounds, striking that so badly that Calvillo didn't even want to stand anymore. Those rounds, the only round that Calvillo did do good was the third, yeah, because Marina Rodriguez made a mistake and got taken down, but she did sustain some damage. But Calvillo couldn't even get in a submission, threatened bad enough to keep her down on the ground because Marina Rodriguez was able to get up. So I don't really like the 10-8 round because the fact that Marina Rodriguez didn't get locked in the submission fully or so deeply that it would render that. on top of the strikes. So either way, I don't know why it ended up being a draw. It was weird to see two draws on the night at that point, and I just was super disappointed to not get a win for you fans and for us as a team. I really, really wanted that win and just wanted the momentum going into the next fight for Bob.
Yeah, well, going into the next fight, you would have think the momentum was there, but even if it wasn't, Alistair Overeem clearly won the first three. That's a minimum. Now, another judge had the first four for him. Okay, so he was playing it a bit safe,
It is
which hey,
ridiculous. It's
well,
just ridiculous.
well, he's playing it safe, and like at absolute worst for me, it was going to be a 3-2 decision for DC, and that for Overeem, and that's at absolute worst. Now, Rosenstruck is fairly gassed. He's still throwing, so kudos to him. Like he was throwing gas, which I do appreciate for a heavyweight. He kept up volume for the most part. Landed a flush shot on Overeem, which sat him on his butt, and split his lip worse than Robbie Lawler versus Rory Mac 2. Like it was bad. But as I watched it, I was just so confused because obviously he sat down. Rosenstruck walked off because he's from kickboxing, so he it's just ingrained in his head. Knock him down, you walk off for the count. Overeem popped right back up. Granted, he probably looked like he was on queer streak. He did, but the ref ran up to Overeem, made contact, and after a second or so, then waved it off. You're supposed to run in waving your hands for it to go off. And I know that's a selection bias on my own part because I had a bet on Alistair Overeem and he was 4 seconds away from winning a decision. I think everyone would agree he was going to win the decision. Like I said, at worst, 3-2. But I went from being so pumped of a safe game plan by Overeem with some takedowns in there, some great striking defense, all of those great things, to watching him getting called for getting knocked out and Rosenstruck celebrating like he won the fight. Yes, technically he won the fight. I'm not going to be too bitter about it because if I was on the other side, I would still be pumped, even though I would say I was a one lucky SOB. But I'm hoping he gets Ngannou. That's my only voice on that. So I guess Mike, take it from me before I get too self-deprecating on that.
Oh my god, dude. I don't even know where to begin. If I haven't been betting so long, and I know that no bet is cashed until that bell is rung or the judges say that your fighter has won, I was shitting bricks, dude. I literally was just I could see it in Overeem's eyes that he was gassing and he was literally giving up in the last 10 seconds. And I'm just like it was flashbacks of Derek Lewis, Volkov right in front of me all over again. I literally I just that's exactly why I told you that we're gonna scale this bet down from 2 to 1. I cannot deal with these idiots, man. They just do the dumbest, most ridiculous, stupid shit. I've never seen anything so dumb where someone get knocked out with 4 seconds left because they decide to fucking have a mental lapse or error. I mean, fall down on the ground, do a somersault, roll, go for a single leg, do a freaking twister, do something. I don't know, man. I mean, it's 4 seconds. I mean, go to your knees, pray to God, pray to Allah, pray wherever you pray to. Do something over him. I don't know what you're doing, dude, but you definitely deserve getting your ass knocked out. But I'm pissed off that Dan Mergliata didn't run in with his arms waving because he didn't. That doesn't mean the fight's over. So until you have the fight, his arms waving, I mean, that clock was running. I know the clock and bell already rang by that point, but I mean, I guess there's stipulations that the ref can call the fight even after the fight. So it's just stupid garbage, loop, gob, blah, blah. I don't even know, dude. I'm so upset. So I was so upset for you, Bob, and the whole fight. I was like, man, I'm so upset that I told Bob to scale this bet down, and then all of a sudden he got knocked out, and I was like, holy shit, I'm so glad I told him to scale that bet down.
No, no, absolutely. I'm watching the fight and I'm like, you know what? I'm okay because there's still a chance he can get knocked out. I'm happy for a win. Happy for a win, especially since the previous fight was a draw, so it was a push. I'm like, it's okay. It'll still be a winning night, all that good. And then I just sat there for like 5 minutes after the fact with my mouth wide open, just 4 seconds, man. 4 seconds.
Dude, it was
Oh,
terrible, bro.